the greatest gift that you can give to your team, to the coaches, to your society, your culture, is to learn how to become a servant.
Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Dear Young Athlete podcast, where we talk to athletes and coaches about their journeys and what advice they would have for a younger version of themselves. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson. You can call me JT. If you want to hear my story and why I do this podcast, that will be in Season 1, Episode 1. But enough about me. Let's meet our guest. Joining me today is a very special guest. This man, he is a husband. He's a father. He is a former collegiate athlete, actually a state champ, pole vaulter in multiple categories, which we'll get to. He's a head varsity basketball coach.
Yes.
A pole vaulting trainer.
Yes.
Above all that, he's a man of God. He is a friend, a mentor, a co-laborer, and it is my honor to speak with Wayne Andersen. Wayne, welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. You're too kind.
Of course, it is my pleasure.
Thank you.
So, Wayne, you have, been a state champ, you've coached, you've trained, but where did it all begin for you? How did you fall in love with playing sports?
I really didn't have much of an option. My dad was a coach for 19 years in high school, a high school coach. I grew up under his tutelage and I would go to the gym when I was, just a little tyke. My dad loved basketball. It was probably the number one sport that he loved to coach. And so Saturdays for sure, he had the gym open. High school athletes would come in and scrimmage, and I'd sit on the bleachers and watch and that type of thing. And then middle school, started taking athletics a little bit more serious myself. Played basketball in middle school. Got to high school and diversified my athletic endeavors a little bit. I was actually played basketball, ran track, as you already stated, and then played football. My dad was the head varsity coach for basketball, head track coach, assistant football coach. But my relationship with my dad was strained basically because of the fact that he actually did live a little bit vicariously through me. So tremendous amount of pressure. I would like to say that I really love my athletic experience in high school, but that wouldn't be true. I did compete, had some accolades and that type of thing, but coming home after a practice, my mom, what would happen was I was under such a tremendous stress because of the performance piece that we couldn't eat dinner for like 45 minutes after I got home from practice because my stomach was so upset I would actually throw up and that type of thing. And so that was a shame that happened. Although now I look back at it and I appreciate some of the things that my dad actually built into me in regard to the work aspect of it, those types of things. And him and I have actually reconciled our relationship. The majority of the wounds have been healed, that type of thing. And so that's where it all started.
Yeah. Well, my assumption, that wasn't my personal experience, but I knew plenty of people that it was their experience. And I assume it's a lot of people's experience where a parent sort of puts so much pressure and lives vicariously, like you said. Um, Having that experience probably informs the way that you parented and the way that you actually coach. And we'll talk more spiritually in a bit, but even thinking the way that God redeems. You share about your journey, probably looking great on the surface, but internally having just a painful experience. But now, what you're doing now through coaching, through training, through competing, we see God bringing some redemption. So, without skipping it, you were a state champ.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
In high school.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool. Any other things you want to mention about your football, basketball days?
No, I mean, I actually loved all three of those sports. And I was, well, this is back in the day, so I graduated in 1970, so I can't tell you how long it's been. But anyway, yeah, football had, I think one of the things that I loved about athletics was teammates. The fellowship that you have with each other. One of the guys that was on our football team, a great athlete, basketball team, ran track. Him and I are still in a Bible study together, so it's super fun. So yeah, I feel like you're mentioning how some of those things got formed in my brain, how I received correction and that type of thing. There was a lot of wounding that happened. And we can talk a little bit more about the spiritual transformation that happened in my life, but that is the piece that actually has helped me to develop a different type of perspective on how to actually engage individuals and when it comes to the athletic endeavors and training them and looking first and foremost at the whole person, helping to develop some of those things in individuals, creating a sense of worth for that person above and beyond any type of performance that happens on and off, or maybe even off the court too. But just being in a place where I've seen when you develop those types of relationships with individuals, getting them to work, whether it's on the court or on the track, is much, much easier. They're more available to take criticism and take correction, especially if you develop those relationships first.
Yeah. And I like that you mentioned being on a team as being sort of one of your fond memories. And I always tell people, like, don't take it for granted. Being with your teammates, working out together, eating together, competing together, you'll get to an age where you don't have that and you miss it.
Right.
I wish I had 20 guys that we could all go motivate each other to work out, but I don't have that. And so make the most of your team, your teammates. What you can do for each other is just an awesome opportunity. So you're in high school, you're playing football, basketball, track, a track state champion. So how do you begin thinking about the future and what you want to do when you graduate?
Well, since athletics was, singularly my focus, and track being the place where I excelled the most, Had a lot of coaches actually coming and watching me vault and that type of thing. But I really wanted to go to some place where I felt like I had a coach that probably was quite a bit different than my dad. Somebody that saw me as an individual, valued me as a person, that type of thing. So that's what I did. I ended up going to Stout, a smaller school, but I knew the coach that was there. He was a good friend of my dad's, knew his personality, kind of how he coached people and that type of thing. And went there. I mean, the sad part of that whole story is I got hurt really bad in the first indoor season, and my career was done at that particular point in time. So then you're looking at, now what do you do?
Yeah.
Right. Because the fact that my single focus in life was, I mean, I was, probably in the top 15 to 20% in the nation, and thinking, okay, I could end up maybe being an Olympian. That was my thought process, putting a ton of energy into that and that type of thing, and then end up getting hurt and then having that taken away from you. So then you're in that position of, all right, now what? Do I even want to be in college anymore?
Yeah.
Type of thing. So.
Yeah. And you're hitting on the purpose of this podcast is, who are you when you can't play your sport? What is your identity? What is your purpose? You can try and find that in your sport, but someday, hopefully not for a long time, but even for the best athlete, it will end. And then who are you and what do you do in life? So me knowing your story, somewhat, I want to pause the athletic piece and come back to it, because a lot of the faith journey sort of transpires between the end of your athletic career, we think, and then the beginning of your coaching and kind of re-entering sports. So tell us about your faith journey. What growing up was like, what were some pivotal moments, and whatever you would like to share with us.
Sure. I'll make it a little bit shorter than it actually was. Once I lost my ability to compete, I really lost my way. Didn't really know who I was then. My whole life was focused on athletics, the accolades that I was getting and that type of thing. So I really didn't know what to do. I kind of spiraled into a depression for an extended period of time. Ended up leaving school, was on academic probation, basically because I really didn't want to be there anymore. And I was actually paying for my own college, and finally I went to my dad and said, look, this is not working for me. I don't want to put the energy and the time and the finances into something that I really don't feel like at this particular point in time is where I need to be, even though I didn't know where I really needed to be. That's kind of the issue. So he basically said, you can get a full-time job, or, you could go in the military. And with a little bit of a smile on his face, he says to me, because the military probably straightened me out a little bit. Well,
stopping there,
right.
You needed some straightening out because, what kind of lifestyle were you caught up in?
Yeah. Of course you're not in the position where you're telling your dad all the things that you're involved with, the alcohol, the drugs, the girls that you're sleeping with, and all those types of things that you're using to kind of fill that emptiness that's there. You lost, your sports identity, And now you're trying to figure out what is my identity? Who am I? So of course, when he told me the military, that I don't know. I mean, I decided, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll give it a shot. That's kind of my perception on things that I'll just try it. Well, you can't just try the military because once you join, you have to stay. But anyway, I found that those things that I was using to fill that emptiness in me were more readily available. The alcohol, the drugs.
In the military.
Oh, in the military, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So 4+ years of being in the military, trying to chase after those, basically chasing the wind and trying to fill up the emptiness in me. So it went on for 4+ years. And plenty of things that I've, very, very ashamed that I did, the way I treated people, multiple types of things we don't need to get into today. But so I spent those years doing exactly or even more of those specific types of activities that I thought were going to continue to help to fill, but those are the types of things that are temporal. All right, you need, one choice, then the next choice, and the next choice, all these things. I got to the place where I was so depressed that I literally wanted my life to end. And God saw fit that didn't happen at that particular point in time. And he had some better things in mind for me. So,
yes. So how did you get from this low point to the greener pasture that God had for you?
the Lord had, he has a way of even using some of your choices and activities to basically usher you into what he wants for you. So I had been dating a girl who actually lived in Oklahoma. I was still in Wisconsin. Went down there to see her. And from there, I actually was introduced to a small church in Oklahoma City. And a long story short was my girlfriend, she became a Christian, and she was the one who invited me to go to this church. I went reluctantly, but after the first time, the Lord basically was speaking to me about a lot of stuff. And this went on for about 4.5 months. And the funniest thing was the first time we went to church, she hauls me all the way up to the very front pew. I'm very uncomfortable. The music starts. I start to tear up. Pastor's, preaching. I'm looking around thinking, is anybody else hearing this? But anyway, I kept going back. And we ended up back up in the balcony about 4 months later. I would always stop her and that type of. But in the interim, the Lord actually had me introduced to an older couple at that particular point in time. Keith and Joanne Moore, who had a horse farm and salt of the earth people. But it was a combination of several things, and saying that my girlfriend had actually really been transformed and changed. The things that I had felt were stirring in me, and then watching this older couple and the way that they actually treated each other was something I'd never seen before. My background, my family was, it was nothing like that. And so anyway, this was it took about a 6-month period. And Keith finally sat me down and said, you need to trust that God's big enough to talk to you one-on-one. And I asked him what he meant. And he said, you just have to start picking up the Bible and reading yourself. And so I did that. And it was similar to when I was listening to the sermons, how that God was actually speaking to my heart.
Mm.
And finally got to the place where I knew and understood that I really had to make a choice. I knew the emptiness of where I was and where I had been, and how those choices had affected my life and the lives of multiple other individuals. Or I can actually accept his gracious invitation.
Mm.
And so I did that. And it was, all I can say it was a divine encounter that happened. Totally can radically change my life, my perception on life, my choices, and that type of thing. And so that, and a culmination of years from that point until I actually started doing my coaching is how I think my personality developed differently. My empathy for people had changed quite a bit. The ability to actually engage people in conversations about that same particular thing, that emptiness within them, and then have some type of solution and direction for them. So, yeah.
Well, it's powerful, and thank you for sharing. Sometimes when people think about faith, they think, oh, that's nice for some people, or you have to find yourself or find your faith or whatever. Or you have a compartment. You've got your work, you've got your family, your sport, your faith, and your story is an example, one of many, that we are not talking about some nice, Wayne found who he is, or he found his way. We're talking about a living God that speaks to your heart and brings a transformation, brings life out of brokenness, transformed your girlfriend, transformed this couple that you saw and the way they loved each other, the way they lived, and really changed everything about your life. And I think that is just so important and crucial for people to get. We're not talking about, hey, just trying to get you to our church or our club or whatever. We're saying there is this living God who can speak to you through the Bible, through prayer, through fellowship, and really bring change in your life, in your family, in your community. And I think you really nailed that for us.
Good.
So you become a new man, really. I mean, tell us just a little bit kind of what changes and what God begins to do in your life and direct you into. We don't have time to hear the full saga of the adventures of Wayne, but paint a picture. If you're finding this podcast valuable, take a second to leave a review, to follow on whatever platform you're listening on. This will help the podcast reach more people. Check us out at 1020words.com/DYA, TEN20words.com/DYA. You can check out our merchandise. We have sweatpants, hoodies, t-shirts, shorts. Use code all caps DYA20 and take 20% off. There's also a button where you can support on Patreon, follow on Instagram at Dear Young Athlete, or inquire about being on the podcast or bringing Dear Young Athlete to your team or group. We hope to see you there. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Well, I would think that probably the most profound thing that I felt like God did, now that I'm looking back and then see where I am right now, is the heart that He actually gave me for the poor, the disenfranchised, the minimalized people of our society, and that type of thing, and especially young men. And my first opportunity to be involved in any ministry application was with a rescue mission in Oklahoma City. And I remember some of the conversations that I had with some younger men and some older men, and something really just kind of stirred inside of me in regard to that. And so as I look back at following the steps and the phases that God has actually brought me in and through, most of that has to do with the need that I feel that there is within our culture, and especially within our culture with young men. The mentor piece of it, a person that can invest in your life, show that person that they have value. Those are the types of things that I actually was engaged with or involved with. Street ministries, when I was down in Oklahoma and some back here, but all of that was the most profound aspects of any type of ministry happened with young men. And so I gathered from that there's probably something, there's probably something to that. And so that's kind of been what I've seen and followed through in regard to ministry. You've actually helped me with some of that.
Right. Well, I mean, again, it's like we're talking about this living God who gives you care for other people. That is a supernatural thing. And to me, that's evidence for the reality of God and the gospel and the good news of Jesus. Is why would you somehow start caring about others when before it was all about you? And then having a heart for people, especially who are marginalized, that is a divine work that happened in you. And it's still happening. And I mean, none of us have arrived at perfection, right? So we're all still gaining and growing, but even the fact that you had that change. So sports growing up, though it was an avenue of success, it also brought pain and wounds into your life. How did you come back into the athletic world? Coaching, will get to competing too. How did you get back into that, and what was different than when you were younger?
Yeah, I think like I said, the multiple opportunities I had over probably the first, 10 to 12 years of my Christian life created or solidified in me this need to be more aware of the needs of young men. I moved back here to the Twin Cities quite a while ago, but actually then I got involved with a ministry that actually I was the individual who actually oversaw the development of the young men in that program. And lo and behold, the opportunity to actually have a basketball team that some of these guys were actually involved with and engaged in, and that type of thing developed. And that was kind of the initiation, if you would, back into the athletic endeavors again, and sports and the coaching piece, and something I had really always really wanted to do. We could back up when I went to college, and my dad was kind of my advisor around some of that. And I wanted to actually coach and teach just like he did. Well, he said, there's no money in that, which, I had to shake my head and yeah, I can see that. And I didn't follow through with that at that particular point in time. But anyway, at the particular point in time that I actually got involved with this ministry and saw the value of a couple of things happening at the same time, that coaching a team creates a very unique opportunity for you. So it is all about relationships, developing those relationships, helping people understand there again, like I said, their value outside of their performance, but also setting standards for them, which you have a hard time doing if you're not creating a relationship with an individual. If they don't trust you as a person, if they don't sense and understand that you really care about them and love them, it's hard for that to happen. But the more that you invest into them outside of the actual, whether it's a basketball court or track or whatever, you find that it makes your coaching life a lot easier for you. Now, it's not to say it's always easy. And, there's always going to be individuals and people who actually don't respond very well to some of your admonition and that type of thing. And I wish at times that I probably would have been more perceptive around some of that, because then realizing my own situation growing up and how I responded to the pressure. But I think over a period of time now, since I've been doing it for several years now, I've gotten to the place where I've not lowered my expectations that winning is still something I love. I want to have the students that I work with actually experience that for themselves. But I have to pull back a little bit and understand that for me, as a Christian man, as a godly person, that I have to allow Christ to be the focus of my choices, why I do the things I do, and hopefully emulate him in regard to, his value for people. And it's changed my perspective on coaching. And I think it's created a much healthier atmosphere for myself and then the people that I coach, and even the parents. I've seen a tremendous move, if you would, around the parents who are actually engaged with the students that I actually coach. They value the fact that I value, their daughter or their son and that type of thing. So, yeah.
Well, value, I think, is a key word. And maybe I say this on every episode, but I'll say it again. When you find your value in Christ, it frees you up to compete, to do your best, to want to win, and to understand your personal value is not determined by that. You go from, and like you said, you go from playing, trying to find your worth, trying to find your value and your accolades, to now coaching, trying to give value to others. And man, That is powerful. Then, and I don't know where else you find something like that besides a work of God. So you get, back into coaching. You love coaching, giving value to people. You're so competitive. So tell us about your recent competitive pursuit.
Well, it's kind of it's funny how the Lord reopens doors for you. Things that were closed for, I believe, a reason. And I wouldn't be who I am today or where I am today if it wasn't for those experiences that I had. And now looking back on those things and saying, okay, you know what, that taking my athletics away from me helped me to understand. It took, I'm a little bit harder headed than most people. So it took a while for him to get my attention around that, but to realize that that's not ultimately my identity is not there. I mean, my identity now is found in my relationship with Christ. And so I think that it's probably paramount in every aspect of life that that's my perception on how I live my life and the things that I do and things that I say.
Yes. And now what are you doing?
Well, okay. I a little over a year ago, for some reason, and I wouldn't say it's all God, but I had this thought about, okay, now I've been doing all this working out and staying in shape and staying in condition and that type of thing. And what about that there's places that you can still go run track and that type of thing, things that are age appropriate. So I started looking around, and sure enough, there are several clubs here in the Twin Cities for that type of thing. Pole vaulting was the thing that I really wanted to actually look at. And so I got involved with an individual out in Forest Lake who actually let me come and help train some of his kids and then vault at the same time. And then this last winter was involved with a few meets. I think I had 3 or 4. I won all 4 of them. But then the caveat is I'm 70 years old, so there was nobody else in my division that showed up. So, but I did set the indoor Minnesota record this last summer, and I'm still training. And now my training of individuals has ramped up, so I've actually started my own club now. So it's very fun. Yeah. And so I'm still trying to. There's a national record I'm chasing, and then potentially there's some other stuff that I want.
So if you didn't catch it, you're hearing from the Minnesota. What is your age group
70.
called? 70 plus.
Yeah.
State pole vaulting record holder.
Yes.
We'll have to have you back on the podcast when you break the world record.
Yeah, that'd be great. Fantastic.
Just to
everybody can be praying for me.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's and I've shared this with you, but that's inspiring to me, seeing you still have a desire to compete and have fun, to train, and really for anyone, it's inspiring. It's something that hopefully all of us can find things in life that we enjoy,
right?
That are life-giving, and create a dream and a goal for yourself and go after it. And even if you don't get it exactly like you thought, the journey will be worth it.
Right.
So
yes. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I think that is a good place to transition. What we always say, well, I always say it on the podcast, is growing up, I thought life was about sports. Now I know sports are about life. So if you can pick of the many one lesson that you've learned in sports and you've seen it play out in your life, what would be that lesson and how have you seen it?
Well, I mean, you can only take from your personal experiences, and looking back, um, I never realized in high school or even in college how much value some of the other coaches around me at the particular time that I was actually competing actually saw what I call the good deposit in me, um, and which was above and beyond that thing that you would actually, uh, the participation piece or the winning piece or those types of things. And so I have appreciated the encouragement that those things actually brought to me around coaching itself. Because if my initial, um, understanding of what it meant to be a coach was just only my father, and like I said, my father and I are great now. He actually tells me he loves me, he's proud of me, which is a God thing. But to be able to look at and understand that there are coaches out there that actually have the ability and the discernment piece to realize and understand that the greatest value that you can instill in another individual is for them to perceive and understand their own personal, value. And of course, being a Christian man, because of what I know that God has done in and through my life, I believe I wouldn't for sure be the man that I am today without that. So I have to give God the glory and the praise for that, and how it's actually changed my perception and how I actually interact with people and deal with people. But I think like I said, I went to, and this may seem like a small thing, but it was huge to me. I went to a funeral of one of my ex-coaches, and there were several other coaches that were there who I knew, and one of the coaches that was at the funeral actually came up to me and said, I don't know if you ever understood this or knew that this was the assistant basketball coach when I was in high school. He said how many times that this other coach actually sat my dad down and had my back, and actually told my dad that he needed to change his approach, that type of thing, that ultimately the way I was being treated was probably going to ruin my athletic career. And this was actually after I became a believer. So now I look back and I go, okay, you know what, Lord, there was, from my perspective anyway, there's a lot of hope for the coaching field. And I know that there are multiple people out there probably doing a lot better than I do. But that, especially in our day and age where young people need to see and understand, their value, their worth, help to redirect maybe their purpose in life, and for them to see and to understand, not because I preach at them, but because I live that out, that there is a better way, there is a more fulfilling and joyful way for them to actually interact with athletics itself.
Making the good deposit in as a coach and in life and the people that you cross paths with. There are studies. I've been out of coaching for a couple of years, I still coach a little bit church basketball, but when I was coaching, I was hearing about studies about the influential role of a coach in a young person's life. And I forget the percentage, but I believe like a majority of young people had said that they'd be more likely to listen to their coach than their parent or guardian. And so it's something I never took lightly as a coach, and I don't take lightly, and why we do this podcast and hear from a coach and hear their story, because there's more to people than we pick up at practice every day. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
As we begin to close out, you're here on the Dear Young Athlete podcast. As we do every episode, we need you to complete the statement. Dear young athlete, what do you want to say to your players, to your trainees, to a younger Wayne?
I think that the most important thing that I would have to say is focus on a shift.
Give it to us in full form.
And what I mean by that is,
Or dear young athlete.
Dear young athlete, it's time for you and for all of us to stop looking at and having the perception that it's all about me.
Mm.
The greatest gift that you can give to your team, to the coaches, to your society, your culture, is to learn how to become a servant.
Mm.
Serving people is going to be the thing that is going to literally change and transform not only you, because it changes your perspective about how you do life, but it actually gives people the opportunity to be more apt to enter into your space that you have relationships with.
Yeah. Somebody once said, the greatest among you is the one that serves.
Yes, he did.
And that would be Jesus, if you didn't pick it up. But that's a good word. Amen to that.
Thank you. Amen.
Wayne, it has been my joy to spend this time with you. Do you have any final words? Anything you didn't share that you have for us?
No, not really. No, I just appreciate the opportunity to do this today. Even something like this actually creates more of a sense of value in my, in who I am as an individual, being able to actually share some of my life and my, change of attitude and those types of things that's happened in my life. So I really appreciate you being able to have me here today, and I'm encouraged. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing with us. And I look forward to you breaking the world record.
Amen. That's exciting.
All right.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dear Young Athlete podcast. Remember to follow on your platform and leave us a review. Check out our website linked in the description, 1020words.com/DYA. Use code all caps DYA20 and take 20% off the merchandise. We'll see you in the next episode.